Hey, what's on, guys? So welcome to my review of Spider-Man Homecoming. This is going to be a spoiler-free review. So Spider-Man Homecoming is the third iteration of the character, and it's first to be a part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And after The Amazing Spider-Man 2, I was pretty worried that we wouldn't get a proper Spider-Man movie anymore, just because of the way that Sony really treated the character and how they took over the whole project. And after seeing Tom Holland's performance in Civil War and in Homecoming, my faith was completely renewed in the character. And Tom Holland did a tremendous job as both Peter Parker and Spider-Man. I'm going to be referring to this character as Peter Parker and Spider-Man, not just as one character, because I really think that there's a big play on both of these characters. You know, it's not just focused on one half of this character. That's what really set the movie apart for me, is from the previous films, is apart from the MCU connection obviously, is that the strong balance between Peter Parker and Spider-Man. You know, as a kid I never really cared about the Peter Parker half of the character because, you know, I just wanted all the badass action scenes and looking back at that, I would definitely say that the Peter Parker aspect was the biggest flaw of the Raimi films and the Mark Webb films. Pretty much everybody that's involved with this movie, Tom Holland, director John Watts, and the writers, they really understood that the character needs to have a striking balance between the two halves of the character. Personally, for me, I think they nailed it on these two halves, with the Peter Parker half and the Spider-Man half. And I think that's where the movie really shines, is when you see the balance between both the characters and how it just evenly plays out. With that said, the movie is really more for the hardcore fans than it is for casual fans. What I mean by that is, if you're a fan of the comic books and you've been a fan for a long time and you know all the Spider-Man lore and you really know how the Peter Parker character works within this same world as Spider-Man and how they both interact and how their worlds can collide, then this movie is going to make a lot more sense, and you'll be able to understand it more. I think if you're like a younger audience, like for little kids, you're gonna get really bored at times in this movie, because there's a good chunk of the movie that really focuses on Peter in high school and how he tries to balance his life as both Peter Parker and Spider-Man. And kids will probably get bored of that and maybe even a little bit annoyed, because, you know, as kids we want to see all the action sequences. We don't really care that much about the Peter Parker half or the normal high school kid half. But in the end, it's not just about the cool action sequences. You know, it's really more about connecting with the characters and relating to the character of Spider-Man. Because at the end of the day, Spider-Man as a whole, he's a really relatable character, you know, because he struggles like we do in his human life, and then he has these superpowers. So we really relate to that human half of the character. So that's where I think the movie really nails it. As for the villains, Michael Keaton as Vulture was actually a really great pick, in my opinion. You know, he brought this strong balance of humanity and terror/intensity to the role. And I haven't really connected with a villain like this since Spider-Man 2, back when Raimi made his original sequel with Doc Ock. And I think Michael Keaton really was a sight for sore eyes. Robert Downey Jr. was also a great addition to this movie, as always. You know, his performance is always really super entertaining, and it's always fun to watch, and there's lots of humor. And when I actually saw the trailers, at first I thought, you know, this looks like a generic team-up movie between Spider-Man and Iron Man, and it doesn't really look like it's more Spider-Man based. But in the actual movie, Tony Stark he's not even there for most of the movie. You know, he's there in a few scenes, and he's pretty much there to push Peter to become the best Spider-Man he can be, and to prove that it's not the suit that makes him Spider-Man, it's the man underneath the costume. And also, he doesn't want him to make the same mistakes that Tony did in his lifetime. Supporting cast also did a great job. At no point did I feel like they were a liability to the movie, or they were just super annoying, or any of that. You know, I definitely like the chemistry between some of the characters, like between Ned Leeds and Peter. I think they have really good chemistry, and it's just fun to watch them on screen. Next would probably be the humor in this movie. There's a lot of really good humor in this movie, but what makes it different from the previous MCU films is that this humor really felt like this is the kind of humor that's necessary for the character to exist, because Spider-Man is a character with a sense of humor. You know, he uses humor in a lot of different ways, especially during battles. So you can't have a Spider-Man character without having humor, similar to how you can't have Deadpool without having humor. Lastly are the side characters slash references. And there's actually a few of these other villains in this movie. Some of them are actually called by their alias, not by their actual supervillain name. And I felt like these characters weren't really a distraction to the movie. There was a nice little addition to the movie, but it wasn't anything that was like distracting us from the main plot of the movie. Like how they did with the Rhino in the Amazing Spider-Man 2, how they just kind of just shoved them in there at the very end. I didn't feel like any of the characters really did that. Only thing I didn't like about this movie was how sometimes the movie took a while to get things going after a big like action sequence happened, because the movie would kind of drag on with the Peter Parker scenes. Like, it would spend a little bit more time than it needed to in the high school parts. And I understand, you know, you're trying to help us connect with the character, and I do connect with the character, but sometimes it drags on a little bit more than it needed to. I think that may be a problem for some people. Some people may not even care, but personally I think it just bothered me just a little bit. The other problem was, this might just be me, but in the action sequences I didn't really get that level of intensity that I get compared to the Raimi films. Like, if you look at the final fight with the Goblin in that like abandoned building, the intensity in that role, in that action sequence, and in the intensity in the sequel for Spider-Man 2 when he's unmasked and he has to stop that speeding train, I felt like the stakes weren't as high in the action sequences. You know, they're super cool to watch and it's a lot of fun, but I felt like it was toned down compared to the previous films, for the Raimi films specifically. So I don't know, personally that's one of my cons for this movie, but you might not realize that. You might think it's super awesome, but that's just one of the problems I saw. But, you know, which is fine. I totally respect that they made that decision, because I personally prefer if they played it safe than they go completely overboard. So I respect John Watts and everybody else for actually playing safe route on this, which is perfectly fine. I respect that. In the end, guys, Spider-Man Homecoming is the movie for fans by fans. Overall, guys, I gave Spider-Man Homecoming an 8.8 out of 10. That's all I've got for you guys. Let me know what you guys think about this movie. Are you interested in seeing this movie now that you've heard my review? Are you going to see this movie regardless, even if it's good or bad? Are you skeptical in seeing this movie now, or what are your thoughts? Just let me know in the comments down below. And also, if you're new, hit that subscribe button to see more content like this. See you guys next time.